Close Up, brought to you by the Kia Optima, pure design.
Well, the ACT leader labelled Hitler and the Mana Party leader dubbed a racist. They came, they fought, they polarised, and thousands of you, as we've seen, had your take on how it went. But there was one point in that debate we thought really stood out. Do you believe that Maori have a special place in this country?
No.
OK, well, there's the fundamental difference. We are not just an ethnic...
Hang on.
They were the first people here, but the treaty says everybody has the same rights under the law.
So we wanted to hear how you would answer that. So we're running a poll tonight. We're asking the exact same question we put to Don Brash. Do you believe that Maori have a special place in this country? Text yes or no to 8875 to register your vote. We're going to bring you the results, of course, of that poll before the end of the show, but first, it's been a huge talking point today. So what's the feeling out there? What do the public and the politicians think when asked if Maori have a special place in New Zealand?
Yes.
We're tangata whenua of this land, mate. We were here before anybody else.
Because it's their land.
Everyone has a special place.
No. I think we're all equal.
They're all creations of our Creator. So, wow.
Everyone should be treated the same.
No.
Absolutely.
They do have a special place within certain limits.
I do, yes.
We're tangata whenua. In New Zealand, we all need to think as one.
We're all New Zealanders, aren't we?
Everybody has a place in New Zealand.
Of course they have a special place. Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, of course they do.
We need to honour the treaty. Sorry.
Oh, yes, certainly.
Of course.
We should all be equal.
Not special above other citizens, no.
And I hate being called pakeha.
We've also got a panel to examine the same question and assess last night's showdown. Broadcaster and self-styled defender of all things Maori, Willie Jackson, political and Maori commentator David Rankin, and in Christchurch, law lecturer and author of Treaty or Truth, Common Sense Questions about the Treaty of Waitangi, Dr David Round. Now look, I want to start by just asking the same question we're asking our viewers tonight. David Rankin, do Maori have a special place?
Oh, absolutely. We have a special place in this country.
Willie?
There's no doubt about that. There's this, the reality is we have a special place. We have our own set of rights under the treaty. There's no doubt about that. That's not preferential treatment.
Okay.
That's recognition of Maori being the indigenous people here.
We'll get on to special rights in a minute, but
country.
A special place.
No, it's our own set of rights.
OK. Down in Christchurch, Dr David Round, do Maori have a special place?
They are our first colonists. They are found nowhere else in the world, although no Kiwis are found anywhere else in the world, but they shouldn't have any special civil or legal or political rights. They're not entitled to claim any at all. OK, well, Willie Jackson, I take it you're going to take a different view on that.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. What did he say?
He was saying, if you gave me a bit of trouble hearing, what he's saying is he doesn't believe that they have any special legal rights.
I was talking a load of rubbish. And it's typical of the stuff that David said over the years. We've had the Court of Appeal here recognise the rights of Maori. We heard Brash last night saying there's no partnership. We hear the same rubbish from Rodney Hyde. Go back to 1986, look at the Court of Appeal decision. They talked specifically about partnership. We had 5 of our best judges in the country who said that the treaty was all about partnership.
David Round, you're a law lecturer. You take exception to that.
That is not true at all. The treaty itself, for a start, gave the Crown sovereignty and Maori the rights of British subjects along with everyone else. There's no partnership there between Crown and Maori. And the judges in 1987, not 86, they used the word partners and parties very loosely. Sir Robin Cook even said in a later case that he objected to the way in which partnership was being read into everything. He said that there are senior and junior partners. Partnerships aren't always of equals.
But this has been, I mean, this whole argument over partnership, Dr Round, has been one which is central to the argument over the place of the treaty. You're saying that everyone's been misinterpreted what the Court of Appeal said.
No, I'm not at all. But I would make the point that absolutely every list of treaty principles is a political invention of the last 20 years. And indeed that the treaty principles, which I think Mr Harawira is talking about, are very different from the treaty principles which were spoken of in that 1987 case. Although even then, those treaty principles were still a political invention of some, sadly, in particular in Sir Robin Cook's case, a very politically active judge.
David Rankin, if we acknowledge that Maori Maori have a special place, doesn't it also mean that they have special rights?
We have certain special rights in this country as Indigenous people. And David Brown must understand he is a constitutional lawyer. He does have to realise that under the treaty we do have constitutional rights.
And that comes under, as you know, David, because I don't know why David Brown gets all silly about this. It's very clear in Article 2, Mark, that Maori have a special... It's to say special too, as David Rankin knows, infers that those are preferential rights. They're not preferential rights. They're rights of recognition for us as Indigenous people of the world, of this country. And David wants to deny us that. I don't understand that, David.
Look, Willie, just apply that, say to England. And if in England, the Indigenous people of England said, OK, we're sick of foreigners coming over and taking our jobs, we're going to exercise our rights as the Indigenous people and tell them to go home. Yeah, but is that on?
No, well, no, it's not on. But where have you seen Māori do that? We are embracing and loving, aren't we, Mark? we invite people to be part of this country. The treaty is like an immigration document. We're not talking about kicking people out of this country.
A lot of that is people listening to Hone Harawira last night, David Rankin, and they get frightened.
They get frightened, but again, it's all this politics of hate. Don Brash is a hater, Hone's a hater. They're the same creature. You know, they operate out of that space of actually knocking. We need stable politics. We need centre politics.
Aren't they basically the opposite ends of the same spectrum?
No, they're not opposite ends at all. What Hone, we can't listen to David really because he's got this family thing going with Hone Harawira.
Get out of here.
And so his word means nothing. But in terms of...
Aren't both of them playing the race card, Willie Jackson?
Don Brash plays the race card. Harawira is talking about embracing people right across the spectrum. We're talking
Unless they want to go out with his children.
No, I think that was nonsense talk. He's talking about working class Pākehā, embracing people right across the spectrum. Only then will New Zealand move forward. And I think what Hone is talking about more and more is class, and that's what it's all about. This can't be just one in terms of Māori. We're talking about, do we have two types of New Zealand here? Yes, we do. We've got the rich and we've got the poor, and people are struggling at the moment.
David Round in Christchurch, I mean, is this a race debate or is this a class debate, as Willie Jackson says?
I'm not sure. I listened to Don Brash and Hone Harawira last night, and I really couldn't work out. There was a question that Don asked Hone several times and didn't get any satisfactory answer to.
David Rankin, sorry.
No, I was just going to observe that I'm watching the Mana Party with interest, and it'll be interesting to see how much it's Maori and how much it is socialist.
I think you can see, though, David, that there are a lot of Pākehā people who were at the launch there, and I think the party will be successful if it reaches across the spectrum, and there's a real gap there now at the moment for a left-wing party, I think, Mark.
You talk about class issues. David Rankin, what comes up again, it came up again last night, and people say, society here or successive governments have failed Maori because of the unemployment levels, the prison levels, the health stats.
The right-wing parties and left-wing parties always talk about statistics. If we stick in the middle and look at how we are progressing, look at me and Willie. We can't even comprehend the lot of the poor in this country. We're in the top 1% of wages salary earners in the country.
For yourself, David Rankin.
Come on, Willie.
No, but the reality is that there's a widening gap all the time, and that's why what Harawira's talking about, I think, is good.
But people will look at you tonight, Willie Jackson, and say, OK, how come Willie Jackson can be successful? How come he can make something of himself? And as you say, you have done well, Willie Jackson.
I don't say that. You're saying that.
I'm saying it, bro.
No,
is it the fault? Is there something inherent in Maori that they can't succeed? Is this what you're saying?
Not at all. Not at all. Our ancestors were capitalists. Our forefathers were capitalists. We're starting to fall into the trap. And again, Hone and Don Brash actually seem to be suffering from dementia. They actually aren't facing the reality. The reality is, Willie, is that they're living in the past.
No.
We have to move forward. We have to stop this
Pākehā Māori. I think the reality, David, is you're suffering from dementia. The reality is this. The reality is that we've got a widening gap in terms of the rich and the poor. There's a void there at the moment, and it's good to hear the sort of talk. But what you hear from Brash last night is, I think, very worrying. You know, because I think he's going to play the race card again, Mark. But
so is Hone.
I never heard him playing it last night. You're only saying...
He's becoming a polished act. Brash and Hone are the same creature.
No, you're only
Brash
saying
just looked like a wimp.
You've got...
Hone's actually become a very well-polished act.
David Round.
Put that around.
I think that we're fooling ourselves if we don't think that there are very hard times ahead for New Zealand and the world for a very long time, and in those times people do tend to become rather more socialistic and hungry and eye enviously the property of others, and as Lord Acton says, when a nation boils, the scum always rises to the top.
One of the issues that this debate is raised, and it's going to come up in this election again, is the Treaty of Waitangi. And you hear this constant refrain, I tell you, in that pile there'll be plenty of them. When's it going to end? Why can't it be settled once and for all? You don't believe it should be settled once and for all?
Absolutely, it needs to be settled once and for all. But what we don't have here, as David Round will know, we don't have a proper education system. People don't know the history of the treaty. They don't know what happened with Maori. We need a proper education system so that people will understand what has happened to Maori, and then they'll be a bit more receptive in terms of what's happened. We've got treaty settlements, Mark, where Maori get peanuts, absolute peanuts, less than $1 billion.
OK, David Rankin, if it just goes on and on and on,
well,
that'd be a political storm, won't it?
You know, I watched the interview tonight. It was the same interview that I heard Rush talking and Hone talking, 10, 20 years ago. It's the same old, same old. We're actually sick and tired of it. I think we've actually done really well with race relations in this country with the National Party, Maori Party coalition.
Yeah, no, well, you
Hang on, I just want to bring
David
David Round in here. In terms of that treaty argument, David Round, I mean, this is going to stay forever on the political agenda, isn't it?
I'm afraid it is. For 20 years, we were told that after this last full and final round of treaty settlements, we'd all be able to settle down and be New Zealanders again. And once that's happened, and we've shown unexampled to generosity to Maori in treaty settlements, the social welfare system and everything else, but it hasn't gone away. We get more and more demands. Now we've got the rights of the Indigenous, now we've got the foreshore and seabed, we've got Maori sovereignty coming up. It is never going to end until we say
this is
no.
nonsense. We've had Maori...
You tell me when it would end.
Well, it'll end when there's some when justice is given to Maori. We both know that Maori get less than 1% of what their loss is. In terms of Ngāi Tahu, for instance, they could have claimed billions and billions of dollars. They took $170 million.
But we can't destroy our economy,
But doesn't that mean they can move on, can't they?
No, of course Maori move on. Ngāi Tahu has moved on. Tainui move on. Maori are used to getting peanuts and actually working for the advancement of this country. And people like David Rounds should stop telling stories that Maori have been getting billions and billions of dollars. Nothing could be further from the truth, David.
David Round, when do you think it will end?
Never, until we say no, I'm afraid. Or I think what's going to happen is that we're facing economic collapse as a country, and when that happens, there's going to be a big explosion because we won't be able to continue bribing them.
OK, I want to come back to last night's debate. Now, did anyone win that?
Yeah, Hone won it hands down. Even his detractors said that he won it. If people look here, the other side of it is he could have spoken like Barack.
Okay.
He could have spoken like Barack Obama last night, and people like David Round would say he still lost. The reality, he won it hands down.
David Rankin?
Put anyone up against Don Brash. Don Brash looks like a wimp. Hone looked staunch. He actually looked quite good. I thought Hone actually looked really good.
David Round, in terms of you watched that debate, how did you see it?
I wasn't sure whether Hone was Mussolini as much as he was Daffy the Duck.
Oh, God.
So in this case, you'd give it to Don Brash.
Look,
I would.
Yeah, if he had spoken like Obama, you would have given it to Don Brash too.
What we do know is that both of them are going to use this as a platform for this next election.
Iwi Kiwi,
Iwi Kiwi, and that'll be the sad thing.
I'm sick of that.
OK, race is back on the agenda.
No, well, I hope it isn't, because I think Brash is a reasonable sort of bloke. He's a nice bloke.
From both of them, I'm saying.
No, but Hone does not play the race card. You didn't hear him talking about that last night. You heard him talking about workers' rights. You heard him talking about the plight of the poor. But we heard this. There's a resentment from people because he's doing so well and he's making an impact.
All right, we're going to see what everyone else watching thinks, especially on our question tonight. And don't forget, you can vote in our poll tonight. Do Maori have a special place in this country? Text yes or no to 8875. Text do cost 75 cents.
I think we'll lose that, won't we, David?
Coming up on Close Up, our exclusive interview with Justin Bieber. What's it really like growing up with the world watching?
I mean, I don't know if I'll be performing in 50 years, but hopefully I'll be able to enjoy myself and have a good life and be able to just retire by then.